So much of this is common sense, isn't it? Amazing that it warrants all this discussion, but fabulous research. And yes, aren't we data people? We're facts and data people, because only when you have facts and information can you actually come up with actual solutions that will actually work. Weird, huh? I got a special request a couple of days ago, and I decided to honor it. A person named Andy Ionescu from Romania wanted to take just a few minutes to talk about how gun confiscation is just the first step to a long chain of very bad things. So I thought it would be a great addition to this conference, because this is really where things can start with gun confiscation. So please welcome Andy Ionescu.
Hello. So my name is Andy Ionescu. Bear with me, I'm a speech-giving virgin. This is my first time. I was born and lived in communist Romania for 26 years. I am a citizen since 2007, citizen of the United States. How many of you have heard about Romania? Romania, okay. Always the confusion. Romania, Armenia. Okay, what did you hear about Romania? Probably three things everybody heard. Nadia Comaneci, the gymnast, Nicolae Ceausescu, the dictator, and of course, Dracula. Okay? So, you know about the best... Better? Yeah. Okay. So, you know about the best athlete in the history of gymnastics, Nadia? Yes. You know about the most infamous of all dictators in Eastern Europe, Ceausescu? Yeah. And of course, you know about Dracula, who was an immortal, according to lore, medieval prince, and it seems this guy had a great Hollywood agent, because it's been like 600 years he's still making movies in Hollywood. But what you don't know about Romania is when the scourge of communism was imposed upon the country by Soviet tanks, and the Romanian Communist Party won the elections following rigged elections. One of the first laws the communists passed in 1947, the following year after the election, was an act for gun and ammunition control. Okay? Before 1945 occupation of Romania by the Soviet troops, Romanian people, they had the right to own guns. Okay? I remember my father was telling me my grandfather had a double-barrel shotgun and a Luger pistol. The Luger pistol was picked up from our house, was near the railroad. The German troops were retreating, so they were throwing away practically everything that they couldn't carry with them. So my grandfather picked it up, and this is how he got a pistol. He was the shotgun to hunt rabbits, and but in 1947 it became illegal to own any guns. So how did the Romanians disarmed? Well, they believed the propaganda that the new regime was telling them. They read in the newspaper that it was for their own good, for their own safety. They needed to surrender the guns because it was a people's republic, a socialist people republic, so it wasn't be any crime, it wasn't be, everybody shared the means of production, everybody's going to be happy, a big happy family on a national level, okay? So, believing that stuff, they started surrendering their guns voluntarily. They didn't fire a single shot. Okay? What happened after that gun confiscation went through? The leaders of the parties of the opposition were thrown in prison. All the political parties but the Communist Party, they were dissolved. They were illegal. The officers of the military, intellectual, the clergy, business owners, artists, poets, even simple farmers like my grandfather used to be, they were arrested and they were put in prison. And the arrests were made with impunity because the government had no fear of repercussions. There was nobody. They were sending the secret police troops in the middle of the night with vans. They were arresting people and they knew nobody was going to shoot back at them. Okay? The industrious, the cultured elite of the Romanian citizenry got wiped out practically. They were sentenced to life in prison. My grandfather actually, did 12 years and they only let him go home after he got sick of TB and he was too sick to work, so they wouldn't care for him. They just let him go home. A lot of people, they disappeared forever, okay? 60 years after, there are a lot of people that they don't know where their grandfathers and their fathers are, okay? Common graves. But, as it turned out, not every single Romanian surrendered their guns. A very, very small minority of patriots, they knew what was about to happen. At the time, in 1946, 1947, the total population of Romania was 14 million people, okay? And out of 14 million people, less than 10,000 Romanians refused to surrender their arms. That's a very, very small percentage. It's something like 0.7%, okay? These people retreated to the mountains and they started fighting the communists. And with great pride, I have to tell you that for 16 years, it was the longest-lived anti-communist rebellion in the former Soviet bloc. It's amazing. So only 10,000 people kept at bay, kept on their toes, the army, the Soviets, the police force, the secret police force. And although they were defeated in the end, after 16 years, please consider their 0.7%. In America, for comparison, the Revolutionary War was fought and won by 3% of the population. Only 3% of Americans, they fought on the side of the revolutionaries. If my grandfather and my father's generation would have learned American history, they wouldn't have disarmed. Just because the authorities and the newspapers told them so. And then 10,000 Romanian heroes, patriots, who fought the communist regime, there would have been 100,000 or more. So if that would have happened, Romania wouldn't have had to endure 45 years of communism and millions of lives lost. And it wasn't until December of 1989 when my generation, I was born in 1963, my generation rose and took up the streets to fight for liberty. Over 2,500 Romanians died fighting the communist regime within less than a week. I remember a couple of months after the revolution, I visited my father. He was in the capital, Bucharest. I was living in another city in Constanța. And he told me then something that I will never forget. He asked for my forgiveness. He said, if in 1948, me and my generation would have been smarter and braver, and we wouldn't have surrendered our guns, you wouldn't have had to live 26 years deprived of liberty in this prison of a country. So I apologize for you for what my generation did to yours. Thank you very much. This is all I had to say.